Hi everyone, welcome to another virtual farm tour here at Chatsworth Farm. I'm just going to turn my camera around so we can start off as always with Hershey, one of our bottle calves. And right now I'm kind of coming to you from a different location in the farmyard. I am starting out hanging out in the calf sheds with some of the newborn calves. So as you can see, there's one right there in front of me taking a little snooze. Oh, Hershey. So we're gonna have to get some more milk because he just completely demolished his bottle and half of the milk spilled out. It's a different bottle than we're used to using, and he's getting a bit bigger and stronger, so his force of that made to a timely end of all that milk. So we'll have to go make up some more for him, but that's okay. So this calf is a Black Angus calf. He was born at the middle of February. He still seems quite small when you look at him, but he's actually quite a bit older than many of the calves that are in this barn right now. He's a bottle calf because his mother is injured and unable to take care of him. So occasionally that'll happen. The cow will reject the calf, or there'll be a hurt mother and she's not able to care for her calf naturally. So the farmers will step in and take care of the calf instead. When I'm in here with the rest of the cows, so that cow is the mother of that calf right there, they all get quite concerned that there's this calf that doesn't really have a mother, or that the calf is following me, so they get a little bit concerned and or confused. So we have our first question. So if anyone else has any questions throughout the video, please feel free to type them up in the comments, and I'll try to get as many as I can. So one of the first questions is what the tags are for. So as you can see, Hershey has a bit of a special tag since he does have a name, and a few of our cattle will get named throughout the year. But since we have a large herd of over 200 cows and calves, it gets difficult to name them all. But Hershey gets a little fancy one. But then the blue tags are to identify the males. So Hershey is a bull calf, so the bull calves get the blue. And then I have a heifer calf, and he's done with his milk. He doesn't have any more. We have a heifer calf right here. So the females, which are called heifers, they get the yellow tags. And then on their tags, there are a couple of different numbers and letters that go on there. And I'm sorry if I'm a little shaky. Hershey's being quite pushy about not getting any more milk, so just trying to stabilize myself as he smashes against my leg. So on her tag, as you can see, she has that top number, the 873B. That's the number of her mother. And then the number on the bottom, 873H, this is her number. So the B and the H are to represent the year that animal was born. So H is the letter of this year. So when we're out in the pasture and we're looking at her, we're going to be able to tell that she was born in 2020. And then some of the other numbers on the side, if she'll be really good, and she's going to come a little bit closer. So you can see the LFE, that is one of the bulls that her mother was exposed to. And then the W2, that was one of the other bulls that her mother was exposed to. So some of our calves have the potential of being born to one or two different bulls. And since the cows were out with two different bulls, we'll put both of those on the tags. And if later down the road we want to find out exactly which bull is the father of this calf, we can do a bit of a DNA test. So you pull some hair follicles from their calf's tail and then the bull's tail, and then you'll match the DNA sequence just like you would people. So these two calves, I have this calf who actually does have a mother, but is very curious about what I'm doing in here. And then I have Hershey, who's trying to get a bit more milk from somewhere. And that's really not going to work very well. Now we have a number of different colors of calves in here. The majority are black or a little bit dark brown tinge. And then we have some others that are this nice dark red color. There's some white ones, some black baldies, so that means that they have some white on their face or on other parts of their body. And there are also some more colorful ones. We have a white one, or what you would sometimes call a silver calf, silver colored. And then there are a few others that are multicolors. So those are some of our Speckle Park cross calves. And those are all the way in our big cow pen. So these calves were all born recently, with the exception for Hershey. If anyone joined us in a few of our earlier videos, this pen was where just the cows that had calved are. Now, since we're pretty much getting to the end of our calving season, as of Sunday, we had 68 cows left to calve out of 200. So we're getting quite close. So now we've moved all of the cows that are still to calve. So we're still waiting for them to have their babies. They are in this pen right now. And the calves that are in here are the ones that were born very recently. So we're gonna go take a look at some of the others that are in here. So all of these cows are still yet to have their calves. And as you can see, they're all really content. A lot of them won't even bother getting up as I'm walking around in here. They get very used to us, especially at this time of year, coming into their pen, checking on them. So unless they're feeling like they need to get up, they don't really bother standing up at all, because with the temperatures as they are today, where it's minus 13 right now, and then last night it was minus 25, we check on these cows very regularly, every half hour to every hour and a half. And a lot of them, you can see they're quite big. They've got a lot of baby in there. And we're actually able to tell when a cow is getting ready to have her calf. She'll start walking around the pen, and she'll start flicking her tail a little bit, and she'll stand up, lie down a lot, and she'll just look a little bit restless, and that something is going to happen really soon. So we're able to have a pretty good idea of when a cow is going to calve. This is one of our silver calves, and it's a little bull calf. And there's his mother right over there. So this calf was born just a few days ago. And we actually have one of my brothers coming in here right now. He's going to spread some straw, so putting down some fresh, clean straw for all of the cows. And while he's doing that, I'm going to make sure that all of the calves are out of the way. The cows do a fine job. The cows do a fine job of getting out of the way, but the calves need a little bit of help when we have to spread the straw. So we're going to get Hershey out of the way as well. So you have our big tractor come in, and those are the straw bales. So we're going to move the calves out of the calf shed so they can get nice clean straw. And we're going to make sure they're all out of the way. Sorry if it's a bit shaky, I'm just moving these calves. So there's one of them. This is one of our little black baldy calves. So as you can see, has a nice black spot on his face and then black around his eyes. And then a rest of white face and 4 white feet. All right, we're going to move. This is our bale processor. So I'm just going to move the chute down a little bit. And we're going to spread the straw in. So this is how we put the straw out. So it's quite dusty. Calf in the way. So there are lots of big teeth that chop up the straw, and then it gets spread into the calf sheds. It's really hard to see anything with it being so dusty, but the straw gets chopped up really fine and provides nice new bedding for the cows and the calves. So while we're out here and while we're spreading the straw, we always make sure that the calves are out of the way, since they're not old enough to know to get out of the way of the tractors. So it's a couple person job to be able to spread the straw for the cows and the calves. So we're gonna get all the cows up and just get them out of the way, because since they are pregnant, they are a little bit more reluctant to get up. They like sitting down and being comfy in their bed. So you get a good view of what a farm looks like when we're doing something other than me just taking you around and showing everyone the cute calves. It's especially important that we put out a lot of straw. It keeps the bed clean, it keeps the cows clean, and it keeps the calves nice and warm. So this is how we spread the straw. So we take those big bales and this machine grinds it up, and then we're left with a nice new bed for the cows and calves to lay in. I know it's a little bit different than some of my other videos, and I'm sorry for being really shaky, but we're making sure that all the calves are safe, they're not in the way, as well as trying not to get a face full of straw as it's being spread around. This is where the cows eat. So they come up to this fence line feeder, and every morning one of the other tractors comes along, and through a little conveyor belt, it puts all the feed out right in front of the cows. So the feed that they eat right now is a mixture of silage and hay, which we grind ourselves. So every morning they get their food made up for them, and they're able to eat it all throughout the day. They have free choice. But they also are, just like people, they love getting the really best pieces and the best bits. So as you can see, they make quite a big burrow in their feed, and they push everything else to the side. And then we'll push it all back up again for them. so they can eat some of the other pieces of the forage. So these are still some of the cows that are still haven't calved yet, so they'll be calving within the next day, within the next week, some of them within the next couple of weeks. We have another question about how long do the calves stay in this pen. It kind of depends right now, since these calves are quite a bit younger than the rest that are out in our big pen. The weather has been really cold, definitely not nice April weather. It's supposed to be minus 25 again tonight. So all of these younger calves are going to stay in this pen so we can keep an eye on them. Put them in the barn if necessary, if they're just looking like they need to warm up a tad. As well as we have what are called calf ears, or they kind of look like a balaclava or a toque. We don't have any calves that are wearing them right now, but they press their ears against their head, and then it keeps those ears warm on the calf, because just like your hands, the parts of the calves that stick out are the most susceptible to getting cold and freezing. So we want to try to make sure that that doesn't happen. So we put these little calf ears or calf toques on so they can stay warmer. But as a general rule, the calves will be in here for a day or two, and then they get moved out into our big pen with the rest of the cows and calves. So here's our friend Hershey again. Because he is a little bit older, he's a bit more curious, and he does start to eat some of the feed. Calves are very curious and very intelligent, so they pick up on what the mothers are doing. So he can see that the cows are enjoying this really tasty thing, so he might as well give it a try. The fence line feeder is just a little bit high, but he's gonna give it a try. Our bulls, so we have, if we can see our bulls, most of them are out in our far pasture. We try to keep them away from the cows as much as possible, just because, just like any males, they have a lot of energy, and as soon as they get a bit closer to the females, they get quite rambunctious, and they can wreck a lot of fences, and they can hurt themselves as well. So we try and keep the bulls away from the cows until it's breeding season. So I'll see if I can walk out and find a couple. And we'll make our way over to the rest of the cows and calves, because there are only a few in here, and we do have some really nice looking calves that'll be staying sheltered in our other calf shed. So I'll go walk down there, and then you can see where everybody gets to go once they've been transferred from this pen, which is kind of the pen that they get to be in for the first couple days. This building right here is our calving barn, and it's been so helpful, especially with this cold weather. We're able to put our cows in here with the calves, and they stay nice and warm, as well as they have time to just be together as a pair, bond, and get a little bit of alone time, so they're not quite as surrounded by other cows and calves. So this is what our barn looks like, and today it's right full and it's really nice and warm in here. As you can see, there's a lot of steam coming off these cows. They produce a lot of heat, so the barn stays warm just in itself by being insulated, and then the body heat from the mothers. We typically breed our cows We put the cows in with the bulls beginning of June. It can depend on what we're looking for. If we look at the past history of the temperatures in the earlier months, so we try and determine whether or not we should try calving in January, February, or March. It probably would have been better to calve in January since it was really warm. So anyone who was calving at that point had really great weather, where you should think now, beginning of April, perfect time, nice weather. Not so much this year. But as a general rule, we will calve beginning of March to the middle of April. And the cow's gestation period is just the same as humans. It's 9 months. And some cows will take a little bit longer, and some will have their calves quite a bit sooner. So this is one of our other bottle calves. This is Kiss, and if anyone remembers her from any of our other earlier videos, she was just like Hershey. She was getting fed by the bottle. But this cow right here, there we go, that's better. This cow right here lost her calf, and that'll occasionally happen. Their calf will be in the wrong position. It'll take too long being born, or it'll be stillborn. So there are instances where a cow will lose her calf, and this calf didn't have a mother, so we were able to put them together. Because Kiss was a bottle calf for a little bit longer, and this cow was also not really interested in taking on an adopted calf, we've had them together in a pen for a little bit longer. We want them to get used to one another. We want them to understand that they are now a pair. And while they will never quite have the same bond that a natural cow and calf will have, you can tell that they're quite happy to be together, but they also know that this was not an original pairing. But they get along really well. This cow is concerned about Kiss. She looks after her. She lets her nurse. But they're also very individualistic. They don't mind being apart from one another. So they'll stay in here and just get to know one another a bit more, get to bond until we put them out. But they're doing really well together. You can see right now that both Kiss and her mother are chewing their cuds. So cattle have 4 parts to their stomach for them to digest their food. And they'll spend about 8 hours a day chewing their cud. And for the most part, they'll be lying down when they're doing it, but sometimes they'll stand up. And so when they chew their cud, that means that they're bringing the food back up and they're able to chew it a bit more, and then it goes down and all through their 4 stomachs, so they're able to digest it properly. So those two are doing a really good representation of doing what cattle do best and chewing their cuds. So the rest of these cows and calves were brought in here today. So this calf was born earlier this morning. And so the calf is going to nurse on the cow. And at this point, calves spend much of their time nursing. Just like babies, they do a lot of sleeping, they do a lot of pooping, and they do a lot of nursing. And you can still see that little kind of pink thing hanging between the calf's legs. That's its umbilical cord. So as it's growing in the womb of the cow, that's how it gets all its nutrients, all its food. So in order for the calves to keep growing, we have to be able to feed our cows, so they get fed just like you saw a little bit earlier. And they even get a a higher protein feed because they're growing another thing inside them, so they need to be able to get a lot of energy and nutrients. How did Kiss lose her mother? She actually didn't lose her mother. Her mother was a first-time heifer, so that means she'd never had a baby before. And occasionally with heifers and sometimes other cows, they will reject their calves. So they decide that having a calf is not for them, and they just won't let their calf nurse. They won't be a good mother. So in that situation, we made the call to take her in as a bottle calf. And she was a bottle calf for, I think, almost 3 weeks until this cow lost her calf. So it can really depend. Sometimes you'll have a bottle calf and you won't have the opportunity to graft that calf onto another cow. But in this case, we did. And they've been getting along really well since then. It took the mother a little bit longer. They realized that this new baby, this new adopted calf, is not theirs. So they try and push it away. They don't let it nurse because they know that they were supposed to have a calf, but that calf isn't there. But even still, their instinct is to protect their milk and give that mothering to only their natural calf. So it takes a little bit of time for a new pair to get settled in, to understand that they're going to be together for the rest of the year as mother and baby. Right now, because there is no grass, we just had a huge dump of snow on the weekend. We have about 5 inches. There's no grass for the cattle to eat. So at the moment, they eat hay, which we cut in the summer, and then we bale. And from there, we feed it to the cattle all winter. And it's an excellent source of feed for them. And what I'll do right now is I'll actually give these cows a little bit. And then in addition to hay, we also give them silage. And silage can be made out of anything. But the silage that we feed our cattle is corn silage. And the corn silage is, it was cut in the fall. And it gets put into a big silage pit. And that gets mixed in with the cow's feed. So this is what the hay looks like. And normally we don't feed in tiny square bales. So I'll actually go back out and grab some more and show you what the tiny square bales look like. These are what the small square bales look like. So we have both hay and straw. And these are only used for our cows in the barn because they're much easier to move by hand. And as you can see, she already found the hay and she's really enjoying it. So this hay specifically is alfalfa. So alfalfa is a legume. And it gets cut and then it gets dried. And it gets baled into big round bales that weigh up to 1,500 pounds. Or these small square bales that weigh 80 to 100 pounds. So this makes it a lot easier for us to move them in and out of the barn. And this is what the cattle get while they're in here. Here's another one of our calves that was born earlier today. We'll see if he'll sneak his head out. So it's another little black and white baldy calf. And these calves, as soon as they're born, they're able to stand up and walk around. A little bit stumbly and a little bit unsure of themselves, but they are able to get up and walk within 15 to 20 minutes of being born. And I know I'm walking around in here quite casually, but all these cows are in their pens right now, and many of them are very calm. They don't mind me being in here. But as we're walking around our cows, especially the ones that have just newly calved, we always want to be mindful that they've just had their babies. There are a lot of hormones going through them. They're very protective of their calves. So we want to make sure that we're not getting too close to their calves, because the cows will put the run on you sometimes. So you want to make sure that you're always vigilant and making sure that they don't look too uncomfortable or that you're not getting too close to their calves. But this cow right here, she's really good. She doesn't mind that I'm right near her calf, but you always want to watch. You always want to make sure that you're not getting too close. And the cows, as they develop a relationship with their calves, they start to mellow out. They start to relax a little bit. But it's always a good sign of an excellent mother cow that they are protective, because we want them to be able to defend themselves and their calves from any predators that may show up in the area that we are. So just 2 hours east of Edmonton, we don't have very many predators at all that we have to worry about. But a protective mother cow is never a bad thing. So this calf is taking a good nurse. So cows have an udder, and so that's where their milk comes from. And then they have 4 teats, or 4 quadrants, and there's a teat on each of those. So the calves are able to nurse from any one of the 4. And the calves spend a lot of their time nursing as they're developing and growing. And the first time the calves nurse, they're going to get this substance. It's not milk, but it's called colostrum. So it's the first liquid that comes out of the udder that the cow produces. So that colostrum is filled with good antibodies and protein, and gives that calf that first head start and all the nutrients it needs to be set. And then once that calf sort of has that first nurse, all that colostrum is gone, and the rest of the time it's nursing, it'll only get milk. So you can hear the calves making a really kind of baby soundish moo. So each cow and each calf will have a distinct call that they will make to one another. The calves also have a distinct smell. So when the cows are out looking for their calves in the midst of 200, they're able to pick their calves out by smell. And cattle have an actually remarkable sense of smell. They're able to detect odors that are up to 6 miles away. So they're able to find their calves not only by the sound that their babies make, but also by the smell. So we have some pretty new calves in here. This one was also born a little bit earlier today. So still figuring out its legs and standing up. This yellow structure right here, and it does have a couple other panels in front of it. This is our palpation gate. So this is where we put any cows that are needing a little bit more assistance. So they'll come in here if we need to pull a calf. We put the cow into this palpation gate, and their head just goes in this head gate, which is right here, and the rest of their body just goes in and along between these 2 yellow panels. And that way we're able to help the cow if she needs a little bit of assistance while she's calving. Because sometimes when the calves are developing, they'll get into the wrong position. So they'll either be backwards or they'll have one of their legs will be down instead of both coming at the same time. So in addition to calling this a palpation gait, it's also called a maternity pen. So as you can see, this calf is still a little wobbly on its legs. And the mothers make a really low mooing to their calves, so they're able to make a really good bond with their babies, and that the calves will know that that's their mother. And they'll constantly moo and make sounds to their calves. We don't name all of our calves that are born. We'll have over 200 calves that are born this year, so it's a little bit tough to name all of them. We'll usually give a few of the special ones a name if they have a particular characteristic or a marking. We'll give them a name, but otherwise they all get a number, so we're able to identify them in the pasture. And their numbers are marked right on their ears, so they all get an ear tag, and they'll each have a unique number. And these calves will get their numbers tomorrow or within 24 hours of them being born. We've had our farm here for close to 30 years. It was started by my parents, and they started out with cattle and grain, as well as some chickens. And then once my brothers and I got old enough, we added some sheep. I also have some ducks, geese, and turkeys. So we have a mixed farm, and we have 200 head of cattle that we raise. So we're going to say goodbye to everybody that's in the barn. And we're going to go down to the big cow pen and take a look at the calves that are down there. So all of the calves that are down in the big cow pen, they've been born for a couple of days now, and they were moved in there. We walk each of them down, and they have a bit more space. There's a lot more room for them to run around because as they're growing, they like to stretch their muscles, they like to get a lot of exercise, so a lot of space is necessary for them to run around and enjoy life. Calves are very curious, and they're also very energetic, so giving them ample space to run around, strengthen their bones and their muscles. So this is down to where our other cows are. As you can see, we have a ton of snow. Everything was starting to melt here really nicely up until the weekend, and then we kind of had a blizzard. So we have a lot of snow, and that can present a lot of challenges, especially when you have a bunch of newborn calves running around, because they don't always know what's best for them. Sometimes they decide to lie down in the middle of a snow pile, and that's a really easy way for them to get sick. So putting out a lot of straw is essential. So here we have one of our other cows. She's just come up for water. So providing fresh water is very important for all the cattle. They do occasionally eat snow, but eating snow takes up a lot of energy and a lot of body heat. So they have their water here and it stays heated. It's kept, it just is above freezing, so the water itself isn't that warm, but we do have heaters in there to prevent it from freezing. So when we had our pregnant cows down here before we swapped everybody, this is the route we would take. We would use our Ranger or our quad, and we would attach the calf sled to that and haul them up this way so we could put them in the barn and the other big pen. But now, since more cows have calved than haven't calved, we have everybody down here, so there's a little bit more room. It does seem like a little bit of a walk sometimes, but it doesn't take too long. And most of the cows are down here. Some of them will be eating out in the field. We feed the cows out in the pasture or out in the field just a little bit further, so they're not close to the calves, so we don't have to worry about maneuvering around the calves as we're feeding the cows. So this is where the rest of these are all the cows that have calved. So they all have babies. And these wooden structures back here, these are called windbreaks. So that's exactly what they do. They break the wind, and they make it a lot more pleasant for the cattle to be out in the middle here, since we don't have a lot of trees. So it provides shelter for the cows and the calves. And then the calves get additional shelter. So they get to be inside the calf sheds, which block the wind even further. And the calf sheds have a plank across them, so that allows only the calves to come in here. And the cows will watch protectively as I'm in here, making sure that I'm not disturbing their babies too much. So you can see most of them are black or are kind of a dark brown. And then this calf right here, this nice little white and red calf, is a Hereford cross. We have a number of different breeds. So this calf is a Hereford cross calf. The rest of these are Black Angus or some Simmental. We also have some Speckle Park cattle, which are black and white. And then this little fella is a bit of a dark brown chocolate color. They also have a secondary tag in their ear. If you can see it, it's that little yellow one. So that is called a CCIA tag, and that's used, it's a mandatory tag used for cattle identification. So making sure that traceability is recognized, and you're able to know where the cattle came from, no matter what stage they are in their life. Cattle also have very long eyelashes. So they're able to be out, whether it's in a dust storm or a snowstorm, and they're able to have their eyes partly open, but their eyelashes will prevent any dust particles or snow from getting in and blinding them. So they have naturally long lashes, and they also have whiskers. And so that helps with anything sensory. So if they're moving around in the dark, their whiskers help them identify what's in front of them. So, and this calf right here, this one that I'm petting, or the one that's standing up, she's our oldest calf. She was born on February 24th. And she's a purebred Black Angus. So she has 2 tags. One of them is the yellow tag for the female. And then her other one, which we can't see at the moment, but her other one is green. So that indicates she's a purebred animal. The rest of our cattle in here are crossbred, so that means that their bull is a purebred, so he's one breed and one breed only, but their mothers are a mix of different breeds. So when you have a mix of different breeds, you can get a mix of different colors. So we're gonna go see if we can find some of our other colored calves. We have a bunch of different calf sheds around here to provide shelter for all the babies. This is one of our Speckle Park cows, so she has a calf that looks just like it. And the cows, when they go out to feed especially, they will go and they'll leave their calves somewhere in a safe and secure spot. And the calf won't move until that cow comes back. However, sometimes the calves will get up and they'll decide to move around the pen a little bit, so the cows get quite worried when they can't find their calves, especially if they left their calf in a specific spot and then it decided to move. This is one of our cows that actually does have a name. This is Pepsi, and this is her little bull calf. So Pepsi is a purebred Simmental cow, and so is her calf. So he's purebred Simmental as well. So she's a really big cow and he's a really big calf. He was born weighing in at 130 pounds. We usually don't like to have calves that are quite that large, since they can present a problem for the cows to give birth to when you're that big. But since she's a bigger cow herself, she didn't have any trouble at all giving birth to her calf. So the cows usually like to sit fairly close to where their calves are laying down. They'll be as close as they possibly can to the calf sheds and their calves without being right in there. Pepsi isn't my cow, but I believe she's 3 years old. And I'll double check on that, and I'll let you know exactly how old she is. Thanks for the question, Kelly. I believe she's 3 years old, so that would mean this is her second calf. And so Pepsi is part of my brother's herd. They have a couple of purebred cows, and she's one of them. So they have some purebred Simmentals and then some purebred Black Angus cows. Even though the calves are quite young and the cows haven't told them that the calf sheds are the best place to hang out, the calves instinctively know that they're sheltered, they're away from anything, and they usually face into the sun. So they like to really sleep in the calf sheds because it provides them a safe and comfortable space. We like to have our calves weighing anywhere between 70 to 85 pounds. It depends on which part of our herd we're looking at. So if we're calving out our heifers, which means they're having a baby for the first time, we like to have them give birth to a calf that's around 70 pounds. Generally in the calving world, 70 pounds is a little bit small, but especially for a female that has never had a calf before, we want to be able to make sure that she's able to have that calf easily without too much trouble. So the smaller birth weights are preferred. And then some of our older cows are our more mature cows, the ones that have done this before. A calf that's around 80 pounds is perfect, but we've had a couple bigger ones, but None of our cows have really struggled with any of our calves or any of the calves that they've given birth to. But they're all growing excellently. They're doing really well off the cow's milk. And are growing at a rapid rate. The calves are still pretty nonchalant about me being in here. As they start to get older, they don't like to be so social with people anymore unless they have a bit of a special bond with us. They're a little bit more wary. But at this point, they're still quite young, so they don't mind me being in here too much. But all the cows come by and check to make sure that nothing is happening with their calves, that I'm not disturbing them too much. So this is the big field that our cows and calves have. So once it starts to get a bit nicer and there's a bit more grass, they'll start to explore more, and we'll find them out in the middle of the field rather than here on the straw. But for the time being and for all the snow that's on the ground, we'd much rather have them close by and staying on the straw. When the cows go out to feed, it's typical that one of the cows or a couple of them will stay back with the calves. It's kind of like calf daycare, so all the cows will go out and feed, and a few of them will stay back and make sure that their calves are all right, and then they'll swap out. So it is very loud. All the cows are trying to find their calves, especially when people come out here. They make an extra effort to find their calves. These calves will stay with their cows, stay with their mothers up until the fall, and that can be September or October, depending on when it starts to get a little bit colder and there's more snow on the ground. And at that point, the calves are basically feeding themselves. They're not drinking very much milk anymore, just the occasional nurse. And by then, the cows will have been bred again, just like any other mammal. They get bred generally once a year, especially if you're a larger animal. So the cows are starting to put more energy into their next calf by fall time. So they'll naturally start to wean their calves. But we'll help that process along a little bit by separating the cows and calves. So then we're able to give the calves a little bit better feed, and the cows can start to regain some of the condition, regain some of the weight that they're going to need for their next round of calving, as well as the winter, because these cows stay outside for the entire winter. So they need to be able to withstand the cold temperatures. So this is one of our other Black Angus calves. This is a heifer calf. And then Kelly, if you're still watching, this calf, its cow was exposed to one of your bulls. So nice bull calf. taking a look in here for that Speckle Park calf. My brothers are really partial to the Black Angus and the Simmental, and while I really like the cattle, those breeds of cattle as well, I like ones that have a real personality color-wise. So anything with some nice white on it or a little patch of red is something I gravitate towards. But I have no idea where that calf is. It might be out at the back end where all those cows are. But there's another one. There's another red Speckle Park calf out here. So we'll see if we can find it. Oh, there it is. We'll get out of the sun. We'll get on the other side. This is what the bed looks like. So we have the calf sheds, a lot of fresh straw, the windbreaks, and more calf sheds. This is the nice Speckle Park calf. She's one of my personal favorites. And the Speckle Park breed is a breed that was developed in Saskatchewan and Alberta. So it's very neat in that aspect. And then there's a second Speckle Park influenced calf. So these calves are both crossbreds. So they're not one breed only. They've got a little bit of everything in there, but the Speckle Park genetics are showing in those two. So this little black and white one is a bull calf, where that red and white one is a heifer calf. All the mothers out here are called cows. So cow isn't the universal name for bovine animals. It's cattle. But all of these adult animals out here, they are called cows. And then any of the babies that are born, like this little guy, this is a bull calf. And so bulls are male. And then any of the others, any of the calves with the yellow tags, they are the heifer calves. And those are the females. Adult males are called bulls. And then females that haven't had a calf yet, those are called heifers. And then any of the castrated males, those are called steers. So our two main farmers. These are my two brothers. Wave. They're out checking on the cattle, both the cows that have calved and the cows that are yet to calve throughout the day. And at nighttime, they're out every half hour. What time were you out? Every hour? Last night? So last night was pretty chilly. So they were out pretty much all night checking on the cows and calves, making sure that no one's getting too cold or moving any of the cows that are calving into the barn. So this is one of our purebred cows. This is one of my brothers. And she was the first one to calve. So that calf we saw a little bit earlier with the both green and yellow tag, this is her mom. Cows and bulls can live for an incredibly long time. I think the oldest recorded cow was probably in her 20s. We don't have any that are quite that old on our farm, but we do have a couple that are quite old. This cow right here, she actually does have a name. This is Maggie, this Speckle Park, so the black and white cow. And I believe Maggie's close to 10 years old. And we do have some older cows in here. that we purchased from our neighbor. They're a Maine Anjou cross, and some of them are close to 17 years old. But as the cattle start to get older, just like people, they start to slow down. So we'll always have our new calves coming up. So we'll have what are called replacement heifers. So those are the calves that we will keep, and we'll use them for breeding as soon as they're old enough. So these calves, once they're old enough, the heifer calves will be bred at just over a year old, depending on when they're born. This is another one of our light colored calves. So she's a bit more cream colored than the other one. The other calf was a bit more silver or white. But very alert calf. They're all very curious. A lot of times if you're just sitting out here in the middle of the pasture or the cow pen, they'll come up and sniff you. And a lot of times there's salt on our jackets that's just from various things, and the cattle really like salt, so they'll come and just lick your jacket or your gloves. So even though this cow and this calf are standing right here and looking quite friendly with one another, they're not mother and baby. Her mother is just behind her, that other cow that looks very similar in color. And yes, these are beef cattle. These are not dairy cattle. They're raised for the primary use of beef. So our females, so any of the calves, just like this one, will be raised to be mothers and to produce calves themselves once they're old enough. And then the males will go, and that is how we produce our beef. So beef cattle are quite different from dairy cattle. They don't produce as much milk. These cows on average will produce 1.5 gallons of milk a day, where dairy cows have been bred specifically to produce milk, and they'll produce somewhere around 6 gallons of milk a day. Beef cattle are shaped a little bit differently. They're not as tall. They're a bit more stout. And dairy cattle have very pronounced ribs and hip bones. And that doesn't mean that they're not being fed enough or that they're hungry. That's just the way that they've been bred. So they're quite a bit more feminine, and they were bred like that. So a lot more of their body is put into milk production. So they're not as thick as beef cattle. So this calf is nice. This calf is getting nice and close. She's just seeing what I'm doing out here. We do occasionally milk these cows if we have one that has lost a calf and we don't have a bottle calf readily available. We'll milk that cow, so we'll keep her in production in case we do have a set of twins, so we'd be able to give that extra twin to that cow. And we have had one cow that we milked for just about a whole year, so we kept the milk for ourselves, and we made cottage cheese and butter and yogurt, as well as you get lots of cream. So the more time we spend out here with the cows and the calves, the more calm they are with us around here. These cows have all had their calves for some of them a couple of weeks, or some others just a few days. So they're far more mellow and calm with us. But as we're out here, we're still going to watch. There are a few that are always known to keep their head up and keep us on edge. They're just doing their job of being a protective mother, and that's excellent. But the rest of them are pretty chill about us being around here. And by the time they've had their calves for a month, they really don't mind us getting very close at all. We don't have names for any of the calves out here, Laramie, but we do have a calf back up in our barn, one of our bottle calves. His name is Hershey. And then we had a second calf, a second bottle calf that is now actually got put with a cow, and her name is Kiss. So we have Hershey and Kiss. Those are the two that, the only two that have names this year because they are bottle calves. And actually there's a third calf. It was a bottle calf for about a couple of hours. We had another cow who lost her calf, and so his name is Sammy. So we do have we have three calves that have names. So we have Hershey, Kiss, and Sammy. When we started out with our cattle herd, when we started back up after not having cattle for a while, my brothers and I did name most of our cows. So that's including this cow right here, Maggie. So she's one of our older cows, not one of the original ones, but her mother is one of the original cows that we started out with. And then we have one more cow in our pen that still hasn't calved yet, and her name is Snowbell. And then some of the purebred cows out here have names. So we have our cow Pepsi that we saw earlier. We have a couple named Annie. We actually have two cows named Annie. One named Zara and one named Duchess. And Duchess is out here, or Zara is out here, and Duchess is back in with Snowbell, so they're still waiting on having their calves. So I know we had some viewers who wanted to see some of the bulls, so I can see one of them coming up to get some water. So we'll go walk over and see the bulls. So thanks everyone for joining us for the calf portion. So we're gonna go take a look at the bulls for a minute, and we can go back and take a look at some of the calves that are in our barn a little later on. So this orange tub that this cow is vigorously licking at is one of our mineral tubs. So it's incredibly important to provide cattle with minerals, because especially at this time of year, they can't get anything naturally. So we supplement those needs by providing them with minerals and salt. And the salt comes in big blocks. And then this little tub here that the calf is chewing on is also another mineral feeder. So it protects the mineral from the elements. So if it rains or snows, it can't get into where the mineral is. So the cattle just use their nose and stick their head right under there, and they're able to get at the mineral and the salt. As I mentioned before, our bulls are in a different pen than our cows, and we try and keep them separate and at quite a distance from the cows, since the bulls can cause a bit of a ruckus, especially when the cows start coming back into heat, which means they're able to be bred again. And the bulls we have are all purebred, so that means they're of one breed. So I'll get on the other side of this big guy so we can see him a bit better. This is one of our Black Angus bulls. And so they're going to go enjoy the water. So we close this pen off whenever we have to move a cow or calf up, but then for the rest of the time it stays open so the bulls can come up and get a drink. To be perfectly honest, Tom, I don't think I ever really lick salt that much. So what some people do is lick the salt blocks just as an experiment, but only when right before you give it to the cattle, not during or after. So we're going to take a bit of a walk out here into our bullpen, or it's really our bull field. They have this whole space to themselves. It gives them lots of room to run around if they need to. They occasionally fight, so this gives them a little bit more space if a couple of them are fighting and the other one wants to get away. It's all how they show dominance. There's a hierarchy within cattle, so they will fight to determine who's the top. It's definitely getting colder. My hands are getting a little bit chilly, but I have some gloves on, so we're able to keep going. Our dog has joined us. She was out in with the cows and calves for a little bit, but she decided to come with me. So I'll switch this around. Oh, you're welcome, Jenna. We'll get to the bulls, and they're all laying down, so they'll be nice and easy to see. These are not our bulls, but these are our yearling heifers. So they're all in this pen together, and they just got fresh straw, so they're lying down in that. It might be a bit difficult to tell. But these heifers will all be put on pasture in the spring, or whenever it gets warmer. And then around June, they will be put in with a bull and they will be bred, and then they will have a calf next year in 2021. As I'm walking out to the bulls, if anyone has any other questions, please let me know. Our bulls get fed the same feed that the cows do, so they get the hay mixed up with silage, and then they have straw as bedding. And then we do put out some pea straw bales. And because the pea straw has some of the extra hulls and the shells of the peas, they get a little bit more nutrients than just regular straw, which is the regular barley or wheat straw. So as you can probably hear, the bulls give out a sound which is called bellering. And it's all for show, especially around me. So they'll beller to one another, they'll beller to bulls that are across on the other side of the yard, they'll beller to the cows, but they are big softies. We decide to choose bulls that are nice and quiet. And these guys are excellent. They have a great temperament, because there's almost nothing worse than having a bull that's difficult to be around. It makes it a whole lot harder to work with the cattle, to move them, whether that's just around your yard or in the summer pasture. So these bulls vary in weight, with some of them weighing close to 3,000 pounds. So this big guy right here, this is one of our Hereford bulls. This is Conquest. And he weighs roughly 2,800 pounds or so. But most of them weigh around 2,300 pounds. So this red bull right over here, this is a Simmental bull. So some of those red calves that you saw in the pens, this is their sire, or this is the father of those calves. And then the rest of these black bulls are Black Angus, except for this one right in front of me. You can't see him. He is a Simmental as well. So Simmentals can be either red or black, and the ones that are black typically have some white on them. So if he stops moving and if he looks at me, you can see he has a tiny little bit of white on his forehead. So all these bulls are very gentle. Sometimes they're even more gentle than the cows, because the cows have their calves to worry about, where the bulls, it's just themselves. So even though they might sound pretty intimidating, these guys aren't at all. All of our bulls are also polled, which means they don't have horns. And some people might think that if a bovine animal has horns, it has to be a bull. But none of our bulls have horns, and very few of our cows do. You can see the big round bales behind him. That's what we feed to the cattle. We make those bales, whether they're hay bales like that, they're straw bales, and then they can be different within those two categories. So you can have pea straw, barley straw, canola straw, wheat straw, and then you can have hay bales that are a bit more grass hay, and you can have hay bales that have alfalfa. So today we pretty much got the entire tour of the farm, except for some of the poultry, but we made it out to the bulls, and so that was a first, and I hope you enjoyed them, and this guy's still putting on a good show for us. thanks so much everyone for tuning in. I hope you stay safe as well as warm the next couple of days, and we'll hopefully do a tour again soon. I do have my farrier coming over to trim the hooves on my horse, so I'm hoping that I can do a quick video while he's doing that, since that's really interesting and a neat thing to see. So thanks for tuning in, and have a great evening everyone.